Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving straight into unpacking embarrassment, literally going from paralysis to empowerment. We're going to decode a really deeply personal poem just titled Embarrassed, and we'll break down exactly how the author takes that crushing, suffocating weight of embarrassment and actually flips it into this profound tool for self-empowerment. If you've ever felt totally trapped by a mistake or just kind of paralyzed by the fear of judgment, well, the framework we're exploring today is going to be incredibly liberating for you. Okay, let's dive into this. The text opens with this raw, super visceral image, full red with no way out. What happened to me now? It's just incredibly evocative, isn't it? I mean, the author isn't just describing a vague feeling here. They're talking about a full-on physiological takeover. You know that sudden flush of heat in your cheeks, your heart rate spiking, that intense claustrophobia where it feels like the walls are literally closing in? It's the sheer panic of an unexpected mistake captured perfectly in that bewildered little question, what happened to me now? Your logic brain just completely shuts down and panic absolutely takes the wheel. So let me ask you, have you ever felt totally cornered by your own embarrassment? The author describes being pushed back into a corner without any prospect of a future. And it's so true, right? When we're caught in the grip of deep embarrassment, our perception of time just warps. We literally can't imagine a tomorrow where this mistake doesn't completely define us. We get backed into a corner by our own minds, feeling entirely stripped of any future prospects, all because of one single, highly uncomfortable moment. To truly figure out how to beat this, we've got to define exactly what the onset of embarrassment actually is. Basically, it's a state of total emotional paralysis. The poem actually refers to this as a life without horizon and a moment of losing expectation. Because when we're paralyzed by shame, we kind of just forget our overarching goals, our life's purpose, our inherent self-worth. Our entire experience of ourselves shrinks right down to the exact size of our mistake. We lose that horizon, the bigger picture of who we are, because we're so hyper-focused on the stumble right in front of our feet. Now, what's really interesting about this is the root cause of that emotional paralysis. It all comes down to a massive internal clash, like a tug of war happening right inside our heads. On one side, we've got others' views, the external, often pretty harsh, or even just imagined judgments from the people around us. And then on the other side, we have our own judgment, our internal reality. Embarrassment completely thrives in the friction between these two forces. We get terrified that the external view is going to just overwrite our internal sense of self. And that brings us to this massive shift in the author's thought process. They realize, I may be wrong in one and correct in the other. See, the author recognizes that external perception is completely fallible. The crowd looking at you might have it totally wrong, while your internal truth holds absolutely firm, or actually vice versa. But the real anchor here is this final line. I need to remember my place. To fight off that paralysis, the author recognizes this absolute need to remember their own inherent worth. No matter what the outside world thinks, you remain worthy of your own attention and your own time. So how do we actually do that? How do we actively remember our worth when we feel so judged? Well, the text gives us a clear journey to self-forgiveness in 3 actionable steps. Step 1, see myself in need of attention. This just means don't ignore your own pain. You have to admit you're hurting. Step 2, be self-caring and empathetic. Basically, treat yourself exactly the way you treat a good friend who just tripped and fell. And step 3, recognize me being imperfect. This is the acceptance phase. By deliberately walking through these exact steps, the author is consciously deploying self-empathy, right when external validation completely disappears. Which brings us to what, honestly, might be the single most crucial turning point in the whole text, the realization that this is not my fault. I am human just like others. It is such a profound reset. The author actively claims their shared humanity here to just shatter that paralyzing cycle of blame and shame. It's that sudden click, realizing that making a mistake isn't some weird anomaly. It's literally the most standard built-in feature of the human operating system. Reminding yourself that you are human, just like everybody else, instantly deflates the isolation that embarrassment absolutely relies on to survive. Building right off that foundation of shared humanity, the author takes an incredibly empowering leap. They take these perceived flaws and claim them as fundamental human rights. I have the right to be embarrassed, the right to make mistakes and fail, the right to stand up and start again, and the right to be morally aware. By framing these not as weaknesses, but as rights we have to fiercely claim, the author completely disarms the shame. Failing isn't breaking the rules anymore. It's a right you're actively exercising on your path to growth. So the crucial point is how the author radically reframes the very nature of moral awareness and embarrassment. They state,
It shows I have qualities I deserve, I safeguard my values and beliefs. Think about how powerful that is for a second. Recognizing that feeling embarrassed is actually proof that you possess strong values and beliefs worth safeguarding. I mean, if you didn't care about doing a good job, or treating people right, or acting with integrity, you wouldn't even feel embarrassed when you fall short. That blushing face is literally a biological signal that you care deeply about your impact on the world. It's proof of a working moral compass.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate payoff of this whole mindset shift. I see myself to try and move, I see myself to get things wrong. When you accept that making mistakes is a human right and that embarrassment really just means you care, you are finally liberated to actually take action. You can't try and move without the risk of getting things wrong. The author is explicitly linking taking action with the absolute inevitability of making an error. They're giving themselves full permission to stumble because, let's face it, that is the only real way forward.
As we start nearing the end of the poem, the author establishes this strict, essential mental boundary to protect this newly found empowerment. They map out two clear directions. First, there's the inner direction. This is what we feel, our actions, what we take responsibility for, and what we have to actively work on. Then there's the outer direction, how we're perceived, how we are felt by others, and crucially, what we absolutely must let go of. The author realizes this profound truth. They say, I feel like I can have only one. You just cannot control both your internal integrity and external perception at the same time. You have to choose your inner reality. Which leads directly into this amazing, triumphant resolution: I can own my embarrassment. The author isn't pushed into a corner anymore. They aren't paralyzed. By understanding the mechanics of shame, claiming their human rights, and drawing that hard line between internal effort and external judgment, they have fully reclaimed control over their own emotional state. They aren't trying to run away from the embarrassment anymore. They're owning it as a badge of their own humanity and moral effort.
And the peace that comes from that kind of ownership allows for a deeply liberating conclusion. And let go of what I cannot hold. If not in my area, it needs to be free. Once you own your internal actions and feelings, you have got to establish a rock-solid boundary with the rest of the world. Other people's judgments, their misconceptions, their passing thoughts about your mistake, you cannot hold them. They just aren't in your area. You have to set them free. It's such an incredibly mature and emotionally intelligent release of all the things we simply cannot control.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final thought. What external judgments do you need to let go of today to truly own your boundaries? Look, we all have that full red moment waiting somewhere in our memories, or honestly, probably looming somewhere in our future. But remember the framework we walked through today. You have the right to be imperfect. Your embarrassment just proves you care. So define your inner area, own your actions, and let the rest go free. Thanks so much for exploring this amazing text with me, and I can't wait to dive into our next topic with you.